Welcome to TimeBenders Talks, the ultimate destination for professional photographers and creative business people. Hosted by Peggy McCartha, a certified professional photographer with over 3.5 decades of experience and the visionary founder of the TimeBenders community. This weekly podcast brings you insightful conversations with business-savvy experts who also excel in their creative fields. Providing you with valuable tips and insights, our mission is to encourage, inspire, and educate you to empower you to find your success. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, you'll find practical advice and motivation to elevate your craft and business. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode.
Yay! I am so excited to be here today. I have a new friend, Aisala, who I just love and adore, just had Victoria on her podcast. And I was like, oh my God, I have to talk to her. So, Victoria, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Victoria Carrington Chávez. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a creative badass, a visual arts expert, content creator, and authentic storyteller. And how I use that is I have a couple brands and businesses. One is called Lilac and Aspen, one is called La Mezcla, and I basically help creatives and thought leaders, entrepreneurs tell their stories and brands tell their stories authentically. And we like to be at the intersection of community, creativity, and connection. So,
Love
yeah.
it.
I
I
also gave a
love
TED talk, so I feel like if I don't say that within the first intro part, Aisala might be like, but yes, I gave a TED talk about my multiracial experience and embracing who I am and all sides of me. Yeah,
That's
that's
awesome. I love that. I absolutely love that. So I have never given a TED talk. However, I do get on my soapbox and say, welcome to my TED talk. Thanks for listening. Um,
I said that for years, and now
and
it
then
just
you
feels
finally,
really surreal because I can kind of mean it. My
that's so
family's kind of
awesome.
stop saying it. We get it. You did a TED talk or TEDx.
It's kind of a big deal. I mean, I'm kind of a big deal. So, family, I tell my family what a big deal I am all the time because I don't think they realize it.
Yeah, you have to. You have to.
You have
Yeah.
to. You have to. You have to let people know what a badass you are. You just have to. Especially those that are close to us because they take us for granted. They're like, we're used to you being a badass and everything. So yeah, why should we acknowledge it?
Exactly. You're like, I deserve my roses every day. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So, one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, because I know it's very personal to me as well, is burnout. And I don't think we talk about when you are a creative entrepreneur, everybody assumes, oh, or says, oh, you're so lucky you're doing what you love. Oh, you're so lucky you make your own schedule. Oh, you're so lucky. But that's not the reality of being a business owner in a creative field. I mean, yeah, there are those elements in those times, but we wear a lot of hats. Like we're responsible for marketing, we're responsible for branding, we're responsible for making sure that everything works. We're responsible for HR, we're responsible for customer experience, we're responsible for everything. And until we learn to get systems in place and delegate work, or until we get to the place where we can afford such luxuries, there's a lot of work to it. And not only is it something that maybe you're not prepared for in yourself, but your friends and family do not recognize that. They're like, oh, you're just out there goofing off and doing what you love. And yes, I am. And also I'm working 12 to 15 hours a day to get this done.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, as somebody who has routinely pulled all-nighters, that makes me feel like I'm back in college for my business. Yeah, it's the amount of work is a lot. And then I also think of it as I'm pulling from a creative well, and I'm also pulling from a well that is essential to my well-being. So my creativity and my gifts and creativity are also how I soothe, how I take care of myself, how I recharge. So if I'm constantly using those, which I'm happy to do for other people, but it gets into a space of unbalance, which is where the burnout comes in, then I'm not able to actually, when I do get that space of rest, creatively restore. And then I get stuck, and then I'm not able to keep creating. And so I view it, so I do social media storytelling is my like crown jewel. Like I love social media. There is more than just the main, the top three. And I really feel like everybody has a story and it is important, and your story has purpose. And social media is just another space where we can display our stories, where we as brands can tell people who we are, what we're about, what we love, so they can kind of get to know us in this fun, interactive way. And so, and I have a lot of clients, like I'm a social media strategist, storyteller. I help clients kind of find how to tell their stories through these different mediums. And I'm a content creator. And it looks really lovely in some of, like, when I'm like, hey, here's this video of me chilling on a beach in the Dominican, sitting at the swim up pool bar. People are like, oh my gosh, like you're so lucky. You get to like create content and travel. And like, yes, but the amount of 15-hour days, as you said, the amount of times, like I'm actually, and sometimes social media doesn't get a good like vibe of like people being like, oh, that's creative. Or sometimes even I know you're a photographer, where people are like, you're so good at the pictures. And I'm like, yes, because I have been training in photography for 20 years. Like the iPhone is a camera. And so,
Yeah.
of course, and I sometimes feel like all of those skills don't always get supported when people are just looking at it from one part, and they're not seeing the 20,000 takes, or they're not seeing all of the other information that I have to take in to be able to to create content. They're not seeing the on the go, right? Because yes, it's lovely when I'm sitting on a beach, but if I'm sitting on a beach creating content, which is, I'm not complaining, that's great, but I'm also not getting that full rest, that full relaxation, because I'm still pulling from my creative well. And if I don't balance it, then what happens is I empty that well. And then I'm like, oh, snap, now what?
Yeah.
And
And I've hit that point many times in my career where it's like you have nothing else to give, and you forget why you even started this in the beginning. You forget that, oh, I actually love photography. I'm really good at it, and I love doing this because it's so overwhelming. And it's, if you're not nurturing yourself
Mhm.
and recognizing that you are something that needs nurturing and you need to be honored in that way, then what else is there to give?
Mhm.
So, yeah, I love that.
Yeah. And I mean, I also think that sometimes like social media is that space too where I create for me. So some of those reels and some of the things that people see on my social media are for me, are for fun. So it's really, it's the same thing with painting. Like I am a very gifted painter as well. And sometimes people will be like, well, can I buy this? Can I buy that? And I'm like, no, this is for me. Like, because creativity, right? It's not everything I produce has to be monetized. Not everything I produce is for a purpose other than just to produce and enjoy the process of creating.
Mhm.
And I feel like it's taken me years as a creative to like really stand in that. Cause like in the beginning, when I became a full-time artist, I was like, all right, fire sale, everything must go. Anything I can sell, let it sell. As opposed to like, wait, to get out of creative burnout, I have to create, but I have to create for me, and I have to create intentionally, and it has to be for a genuine purpose. So then I can get to that space of production again.
Absolutely. People ask me, my least favorite question in the world is, "Oh, Peggy, what are your hobbies?" I hate that question because every time I've fallen in love with something, because I am creative, I do a lot of creative things. Every time I've fallen in love with something, people have said, "Oh, can you do that for me? I'll pay you." How much is that? And so every time I found a hobby, it's something that is monetized. So although I still do those things
Mhm.
for me, like I still go out sometimes when I start feeling the burnout happen, I start feeling the pressure happen. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go take pictures of things that I would never sell. Maybe I would never even show anyone else, but they're going to make me happy. Or I'm going to go challenge myself to learn, some weird effect or some weird little trick, and go out and do something that I would never show a client or do for a client, but I want to do it. It's really fun. Like I'll go out and challenge myself to do something for me. And I just don't think that people realize how important it is and how dangerous it is as a creative, because people say, "Oh, how much is that? I want to buy that from you," and then they lowball you so low that it doesn't even make sense.
Yep.
And or literally you're always working. You took that thing that you love and now it's got a deadline to it. And now you've got to, you know, I'm a photographer. I have a style. I like to shoot a certain way, but I have a client that wants something a little different. Well, can I do it? Of course I can. I've been doing this for a bazillion years. So, you're having to take and not be, you have to like make it a product.
Yep.
And it's whether it's photography, whether it's painting, whether it's candle making, whatever it is, it's easy for, I need to pay the bills.
Mhm.
I need to get this done, and to forget to honor that gift that we have.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And honor that gift in space. And by the way, you look really amazing for being a bazillion years old.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Like you're right in that space of creatives. And when I went on Ayesla's podcast, a big thing I talked about is that we will place value, and sometimes, and as you said, more often than not, sometimes it's undervalued on the creative product. But we need to shift our mindset to actually valuing the creative and the creative process, because all of us creatives have our process. They're all different. Like I'm sure your creative process differs from mine, but that's our process. That's how we, create the magic. And I really love this idea of a creative as somebody who can bring something unseen. Like you're literally doing magic. You're pulling something from another realm, and taking that ether and then bringing it to a two-dimensional space. And that, it takes work. It's energy. And so the more I think that we shift as, oh, that's really beautiful photograph, to that's really beautiful work that you're doing. I honor you. I honor your process. I think that we can start to cultivate spaces where creators feel comforted, they feel at home, and that they can really thrive. Because it's a lot of work. And then if you're constantly doing it over and over again, and then if you're, making those adjustments, which are necessary when you're working in a creative business for your clients, you get burnt out. I think one of my worst burnouts is this last July. I had to, I had just finished giving my TED Talk. I was doing content creation. I was still doing client work. I was, also like, and it was the beginning of my business. So I was like, I can do this and I can do that and I can do this and I can do that because I'm creative and I'm very talented. I have a background in graphic design. And so I'm like doing all these different creative hats, and my brain just got overwhelmed trying to switch to all these different creative lanes. And I just had to take a month off because I couldn't produce. I'd sit and stare at my computer and I would like cry and I'd be like, what am I doing? And then I felt really bad about myself and I felt like a failure, as opposed to, and I'm thankful for friends like Ayesla and support systems like Ayesla who are like, hey, you're not the problem. Your process and maybe your system and what you're offering there's some problems there. So let's look at that, because I think that's also really important that we as creatives, we're gifted, we're talented. We don't have to share all of our talents with the world. And we do have power in choosing when, how, which ways we share our creative talents. And that's been revolutionary for me in my business, to really sit down and say, what are my creative offerings? And what do I want to just keep for me in that sacred space that I can restore, that I don't get to that place of, I'm so burnt out, I need a month to just do nothing.
I love that. And that's where I've really pulled back as well. There are certain things that I don't offer
Mhm.
anymore that I photograph. I will photograph it for my family, for
Mhm.
myself, for very, very close friends. And then it makes it special and I enjoy doing it
Mhm.
because I know I'm good at it, but I don't want that to be tainted by, like, I don't want, I've been a professional photographer for over 35 years.
Mhm.
And I studied photography for 10 years before that.
Mhm.
So, you know, it's easy to have those things taken away and become a product.
Mhm.
And it's you've got to put those boundaries up. And I love that you're saying that because I don't hear that. I don't hear people saying that. It's okay to do amazing things that you don't share with anybody.
Yeah.
Or that you share and you're like, "No, I won't do that for you."
Yeah. Yeah. It was much like,
Don't.
yeah, yeah. And I love this. So it's talking to you, Peggy, is like this really loving clapback to like teenage me, or like callback. The callback is the good one. I sometimes switch them. Of, my first business, when I was like 22 or 23, was a photography business. And, I got my first camera when I was like 13. I went around, my parents would drive around Colorado, and I do wildlife photography, and it was such a happy, beautiful, peaceful place, is going out and taking pictures of the animals, the mountains, the Rockies. I felt so at home. And so I would do portraits. I did headshots, charging people in the dorm, like $20. Sometimes they'd give me 50, and I was like, yes. And it evolved, right? And I got good at it over the years. And then, as my business grew, people started asking me to do weddings. And I was like, I did one for a friend. And then I was like, I don't want to do this. I actually don't think that this is my superpower, if you must, in photography. There are so many umbrellas of photography, and there are some people that are rock stars at weddings. I'm not one of them. And that's okay. And I think that that's another piece of like that creativeness. When you are a multi-talented creative, you don't have to be talented at all of the branches of that tree. And the more that you can tune in with like, what are your branches, the more that you can practice and refine those. And then, like you said, really decide over the years, is this what I want to offer? I don't do photography for clients anymore. I mean, I had to do it for friends and family. I have my digital camera, but most of my photography skills have been now tapped into social media, and it's been put into that, and using those skills to bring videos and reels and those stories to life.
I love that. A really good friend of mine, Amy Lancy, also helps people tell their story. And the one thing that she says that I love is your resume shows that you're qualified for a job, but your story shows that you're an expert.
Yeah.
And, our resume is what our portfolio, it could be, whatever it is that you do. But if you don't know how to tell your story and you don't know how to honor your own story, and I see a lot of honor with you really honoring yourself and your story and teaching people to honor that story. And I think that that is so important because people connect to stories, and people will be drawn to that, and they love authenticity. People are craving authenticity. They want to know, like, oh, you had burnout, you were like frustrated, you almost quit this. Like, I felt like that before. Like those are things people can connect to other than, oh, I'm perfect. I live on the beach and this is my life and everything is so wonderful. Like, come on. Like,
Yeah.
you just got in a fight with somebody 2 minutes before that. We know you did. So,
Yeah.
I mean, but that authenticity and just being able to, say, hey, I'm not perfect, but look where I'm at,
Yeah. Yeah.
and knowing how to honor even the failures. You can honor your failures because are they really failures or are they lessons? Like, I think the
Yeah.
more you honor things, the more they become a lesson versus a failure. Like, oh, I tried that and I sucked at it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think that we don't try and fail. We don't play because what is play but exploring? I One of my first careers after photography was and after college was teaching K through 8 Spanish. And something I constantly told my students, because I would have students, especially some of the older students, who were so afraid to try to speak Spanish because they were like, what if I get it wrong? And I'm
Mhm.
like, you're gonna get it wrong. And they were like, but I don't want to try unless I know it can be right. And I think of this principle, how it shows up in my own art business or in my own creative practices. There have been times where I have been stuck as a creative. There have been times where I have left paintings unfinished and I'm so overwhelmed because there is this idea of like perfection, especially for like us artists. It's like sometimes the pressure that I would feel in art school is like, I got to be at the Michelangelo, Leonardo level, or it's like there's no in between. It's like that level, the Michelangelo, Leonardo, or like you suck. Which it's like there's a lot of room in between. Like, and many of us fall somewhere in between there. And the more that we can find out where we fall in that in between is by trying things out, by failing, by sucking at things, and then being like, do I want to continue? Do I want to refine? Do I want to get better at this? Because it's the same thing with language. I would tell my students that I mess up words in Spanish, I mess up words in English, and I am still getting better at it every day. And they were like, wait, you're the teacher. You make mistakes? And I'm like, yeah, that's a part of the creative process. That is part of the learning process. But we just don't honor that. I love how you use the word honor. And even as creatives, we're not always taught how to cultivate and honor that play, honor that exploration, honor the mess ups and the mistakes. I just think of the Bob Ross, the happy little accidents and the happy little trees. And why we love that is because that's how we create. Like,
Exactly.
listen, my content is cringy from years ago. When I look at some of my first social media videos, they're cringy. They're not cute. I had to practice. I had to get better at it. But I'll have clients who be like, I don't want to make cringy content. And it's like, well, but how are you going to get better at it?
Yeah. You have to. You have to. Those, I look back on photographs. Like I mean, even 10 years ago, like, and I'm like, oh wow, I thought I was like hot stuff. And I was. People paid me a lot of money and I was like recognized as a very high-end portrait photographer. But I look back at them now and I'm like, what was I thinking? Why would I have done that? Why? It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it wasn't because I gave them an experience and I gave them an image that they love, and
Mhm.
they're never going to look back on that and go, I don't think she was really that good. They're going to love that thing that I created for them.
Yeah.
We're the only ones that think that. We're the only ones that think that that content was cringy because somebody watched that content and it changed their life and you don't even know it.
Yep. I
You
am
said something that went, "Oh my god," and they pivoted right then and there, and that was a pivotal point in their life, and you don't know. You look back on it, and you were like, "That's so cringy."
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I am by far my harshest critic that I will ever deal with. Like, and I recently went on a retreat to the Dominican, and one of the activities that we had to do is like write like what are our harsh critiques of ourselves, and then ask ourselves, would we really tell this to a friend? And then write on the other sticky note what we would actually say to a friend. Um, and like, I think one of mine was like, I'm not good enough. And I was like, if I had a friend who was like, I'm not good enough, I'd be like, no, I think that you're wonderful as you are, and you can practice, you can refine, you can do whatever you want, and are you asking yourself, do you want to even be better at this? Right? Like I tried to learn how to cook a dish once, like, or make homemade pasta. And it was so much work because I'm gluten free. And I was like, this was so much work. I don't want to be better at this. I'm glad that I played. And that goes back to what I was saying about exploring. I'm glad that I played. I'm glad that I explored. And now I know what I don't want. Because I also think that that's a key in the creative process, and the key in starting a creative business is those failures were just feedback that I was able to go, this is actually not what I want. And it just helps me get more clear on what it is I do want.
And if we don't try, we don't know. If we don't try, we have regrets. We think, oh, I always wanted to do that. I bet I would have been really good at that. And then we regret not doing it. But when we try it, then either maybe we do like it and we want to put the work in to be better, or we're just like, I ate raw plant-based for many, many years. Now, I only say that because you brought up the pasta. It is so much work to prepare. I if I could have one thing, like my whatever dream would be to have just a live-in chef, like, that would just give me food. Like, if I never had to go into the kitchen,
Yes.
I would be
Yes.
fine with that.
Yes.
So something that takes hours and hours to prepare and you eat in, like, 20, 30 minutes, it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you know what? There are other people that they love that. That is their way of showing love, and
Yep.
they makes them feel happy, and they're like, "Oh my God, look at this wonderful." And they should do that.
Yeah.
They should do that.
Yeah.
But if I hadn't tried all these things, I would have not known how much I hated doing it and how
Yeah.
much life it drained from me.
Yeah.
And then I would have always thought, oh, I should have done that. I bet if I would have just no, Peggy,
Yeah.
no, hire
Yeah.
someone for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like I want that for the both of us. Like I say the same thing. Like if I could, a live-in chef, because sometimes my ADHD, like I forget to eat, and like if I had a live-in chef that was just like, all
Here's
right,
your food.
here's your food, I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, yeah, that's great.
I actually am hungry. How did you know? This is
How did
brilliant.
you?" They're like, "We haven't seen you eat in these hours." But I love, and just kind of circling back to, yeah, that creative play and that exploration. And sometimes the way I talk about, and I talked about it in this way on Aisla's show, of this level of also decolonizing some of our art mindsets that we're given, because it's like, when I was in art school, it was like, okay, here's the masters. And it's not, and they're masters, they're great. But like, if I'm out here trying to compare myself to like Michelangelo, and really my like secret sauce is making pasta sauce, and Michelangelo's painting the Sistine Chapel, well, there's not going to be an alignment for me to see my skills and my success and my own magic. And I think that that's the other reason why it is so important that we as creatives explore, as we lean into the feedback, or into the failures, because then we can kind of be like, and decolonize this idea of it has to be like this one person's, or it's not great, because your level of greatness might not be somebody else's, and vice versa. Like, we are able to explore what is our greatness and own that, and like cultivate that, and honor that, and nurture that, and then we get to be a star. And I think about it, as I was on this retreat, and I'm like, looking up at the stars, that sky would be so boring if there was one star or two stars. But the fact that the sky is full of all of these different bright, shiny stars and all of their greatness, that's what I want to cultivate in art spaces.
I love that you brought in colonization. I mean, we are so brainwashed into what is the correct thing.
Mhm.
And why is it correct? Because somebody came up and said it. Like, Michelangelo was not a respected artist when he was alive.
Exactly. Exactly.
He
People
did
were like,
not think, "Oh my God, I'm so great. Look at me." Like, no. And so, like, just being you authentically, like, we need diversion. We need, I mean, if everybody, obviously I'm a photographer, so I'm going to put this in photography talk. There are people out there that are like, you have to do things my way, and the only way that you'll be a good photographer is if you do it my way. And I'm here saying that if you do it my way, that's lazy. I'm already here. I'm still shooting. Find your way. Like,
Yeah.
there are principles. Obviously, there are laws and principles of photography that you should
Yeah.
know and you should understand so that you can break those rules with intention. And that goes for any area of business, any area of life. Like, you should understand, if you're calling yourself a professional at something, you should understand the principles of that profession, whether it's art, whether it's, whatever it is. But the point is, you break the rules on purpose. You're like, oh, well, what happens if I do this? What happens if I do that? And that's how you develop your style. And that's how you show your personality and how you see the world, because it's about how you see the world.
Absolutely.
How do you see the world? Because I want to know that. I want to see that, because that's going to make me see the world not just the way I see it, but also the way you see it. And now I see it this big. How do you
Exactly.
see it? Oh, now I see it this big. How do you see it? And that's how we grow, and that's how we like get excited and move forward. And that can be applied to literally everything, not photography, not painting, but everything.
Yep.
And when we stop saying that old white guy, that old white guy, whoever that they is, I don't care what he thinks.
Yeah.
I want to know what you think. How do you see this? And
Yeah.
I think that it is so important that we consciously realize that if we like it, it's perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. We have to just like it and be comfortable with our own skills and our own gifts and cultivating those spaces. And I think about, so like, in my indigenous roots, like Mdene, and the weavings, like the tapestries that Navajo weavings are just such beautiful art. And so for me, I'm not able to necessarily weave thread, but I weave stories. I love stories. I've loved stories since I was a kid. Like, I am an authentic storyteller. That goes through with everything that I do, whether it be social media, whether it be giving a TED talk, whether it be a painting, because stories are important. They connect people, they can convey emotion. And something that I see in a lot of creatives is that people just don't know who they are in their own story. And because part of that colonization is people tell you who they think you are. And I think part of reclamation, however that process may be, involves you defining and finding out who you are, not what somebody told you you are. But once you own your story, once you own your main character energy, and you're like, I'm a storyteller, I'm a translator, I'm a creative, I know what those archetypes are, I know who I am, I know why I exist, I know my path, I know my purpose, you are unstoppable. And that you can kind of tap into that greatness. And like you said, Peggy, you just have to like it, because I know that I'm not for everybody, and that's okay. I like to joke that there's people out there that don't like chocolate. I might not always understand it, but they exist.
Weird, right?
Yeah, but it exists. There are people out there who are perfectly content not eating chocolate a day in their life. Just like my art is not going to speak to everybody. It is not for everybody. I am not for everybody. But the people that I'm for and the people that get jazzed about the work that I'm creating, that's the people I want to cultivate connection and community with. And that's why it's so important that we know who we are, not who we're told or who we think we're supposed to be, and tapping back into that authenticity in our own stories, in ourselves.
So, a little side note here, because my brain's not going to allow me to go forward until I say this. So, Aisala, who's introduced me to you, I knew that she had somebody that was Navajo. That and it, like, I did not realize that it was you. And so right now I'm feeling like really silly, because I don't know if she told you, but like, I started my photography business on the Navajo reservation. I lived on the reservation for 12 years.
Wow.
I have Navajo kids.
That's amazing.
I'm getting ready to have a Navajo grandbaby. Like, I didn't know. I was just like, wait, what? Oh my God. I
So
didn't realize.
you
So funny. So yes,
oh,
when I first moved to the reservation, they taught me how to introduce myself. Would you like me to tell you?
yes.
Yate, I'm Biligana Dikius Peggy.
Oh, I
So
love it.
you guys,
Okay.
anybody that speaks Navajo knows that's a total
Okay.
Navajo humor.
Yeah.
Um, for anybody that doesn't speak Navajo, you'll never know what I just called myself. What they told me what I said was, "Hi, I'm Peggy, and this is my name," and that's not what it is. That's not what it is.
No. And I will admit, I don't
Iligana Dikis. Oh, you don't know?
I don't speak. I mean, unfortunately, my family
Oh,
has suffered colonization, and that my
okay.
grandfather survived residential schools, and we lost some of those bridges. And part of my reclamation and journey is getting reconnected, and it's been a beautiful journey in space. And I have been able to meet some really wonderful, like Dene Navajo kin, and just get some of those spaces back. But I know Yate, like we, that
Okay.
was like
Well,
always.
it says hello. I'm a crazy white person. In Navajo, I say hello. I'm a crazy white person. My name's Peggy. Um, but of course, they didn't tell me that, so I'm introducing myself to people, thinking and everybody's like, "Oh, this is good."
Yeah, yeah,
But
that.
Navajos have a very good sense of humor. Like, it's always a joke and a tease. Sometimes it's a little bit mean, but
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah.
I'm Navajo and Mexicana and African American,
Uh-huh.
and so like I joke. There's like a joke out there that I saw that was like, sometimes like Mexicans like will use like your insecurity and that's your nickname, and I was like, ooh, that kind of hits. But like you learn to kind of just be empowered and be like, okay, I guess this is me, like I like gordita is one that like comes up a lot, and it's like very rude. Like you should not call people that, but like, you're in that like that baby fat phase, and people are walking around calling you gordita, and then over a while, like you're just like, you know what? Yeah, I am a gordita. Like I'm gonna own it. Like I'm gonna, you know what? I have a bikini body because my bikini just goes on my body. Like, all of these like different ways that we learn confidence. Because I think too, as tapping back to this creativity conversation, is that I had to learn to get a little tougher skin, because the world, especially in content creation, especially on social media, people are gonna say stuff.
Mm-hmm.
People are just going to say what they think and feel. People are going to hide behind keyboards, but that doesn't mean you stop doing what you're doing, because you might have something really important to bring to the world. I mean, that's how I felt about my TED Talk.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had this important message, and it was just good to get it out, as opposed to worrying about what people would say. I mean, I grew up with like, cousins calling me gordita. Like I'm going to be okay.
In Navajo, that's Joncho, and that was my daughter's nickname because she was a very chubby little baby.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I love that, but it's that realness, right?
No,
And
yeah,
like,
you just, and I think that that's when you don't take yourself so seriously.
mhm,
I believe words have power, and I do, but I
absolutely.
also believe that we can't take ourselves so seriously sometimes. Sometimes we have to be able to laugh. Um, Game of Thrones. I remember there was a quote on there where he said, embrace basically now I'm going to mess it up because I'm like realizing that anyway, the gist of it was like, I know who I am, you can't weaponize that against me. Like, I know all of my faults, I know everything bad about me, so you
Yep,
saying those things to people, it's okay, I've already owned that.
yep,
And that's really the best thing you can do as a creative, because art and creativity is subjective. Like,
yeah,
some people are going to love it and some people are going to hate it. And, you know, when everybody's telling you you're so great and you're so wonderful, and that one person is like, that's horrible.
mhm,
That one person, if we're not careful, is going to be the headlines
mhm,
instead of the 50 other people that loved your creativity. That one person's negativity
Yep.
is going to be the headline and, knock you way down. So you
Yep.
you have to not take that so serious. Like, oh, I'm sorry, you don't care, you don't, like my
Yep.
art or my creativity or my whatever it is that I do.
Yeah.
That's all right. Like, I'm not for everyone. It's okay.
Yeah, yeah, and these are mindsets that we have to work on, that we have to shift. And then, in some of my experience, as a multiracial person, woman, like sometimes I feel like there's even deeper layers that I have to like uncover and heal and discover. But I mean, I had a friend once talk about it in this context of like the smudge in the gold room. Like I could be in a room full of gold and all the shiny objects, and like that one comment, that one thing that one person said is like a smudge on some gold vase, and all I'm seeing is that smudge. And that's what my negative mindset will do, and I'll like fixate on it, and then I'll like freeze and not like look at the fact that I'm standing in a room full of gold, right?
Right.
And that's the point. I'm in this gold room, like, and you find your gold rooms, you find, and as I've learned to shift to more positive mindsets and get more tools to connect, you find friends like Aisla, like whoever people's squads are, to remind you, no, honey, you're in a room of gold.
Mm-hmm.
You are gold, by the way, and you're in a room of gold. It is a-okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. This has been so fun. We covered so many things. I so appreciate your time. And I know this, for anybody watching, this was last minute. I was like, hey, I was traveling this week and I was going to just like not do the podcast. And then I was talking to Isla and I was like, ask her if she'll come on Thursday, see if she will, beg her. And so I am so grateful that you took the time out of your busyness and, respectfully your own time to share all of these things with us. I just love getting to hear all of this. And we talked about burnout. We talked about respecting our art and our craft and our talents. We talked about, what else did we talk about? We talked about really honoring that space, and that protecting ourselves and our creativity is more important than anything else.
Yeah.
Right?
And
What else did I miss?
being your own star and not trying to compare. Comparison is a thief of joy. And like just really, and find your gold room and stop looking at the smudge is what I saw in the comments. Stop looking at the smudge. You're in a room of gold, honey. You're fine. Yeah. I also love how we talked about in our businesses from a creative business lens of like, you have autonomy to find what it is you want to do that is going to fulfill you creatively, to avoid that burnout.
So here I was in private chat instead of public chat. So I missed some comments. So let's go back and check out the comments that Aisla, because we were talking about her a lot. Yay. Creativity burnout, Peggy. Go do something creative for yourself. That's very important. Good point. We have we don't have to share all of our talents with the rest. That probably is a thing that stuck out the most to me when you said that, to be honest. I really liked that. And that's something that I've always struggled with, because when people say, oh, can you do that for me? I'm like, and then I begrudgingly do it instead of just saying no. No is such a magic word. Oh my God. No is such a magic word.
No is magic.
You should put that on a t-shirt. You should. You absolutely should.
Failures are just feedback. I mean, it doesn't work. So now I'm one step closer to finding what does work.
Yeah. Yeah. I love your sense of humor and the way you and she's like, Germans do that too. Yes, we're talking about the sense of humor. Kind of, and I think a lot of cultures do that in order to make us not take ourselves so dang seriously. Geez, in the house. Such fine words. Geez, so sophisticated. And find your gold room. Don't look at the smudge. Good reminder. Thank you. Competition is the thief of joy. That is point on.
Yeah.
So this was just, and thank you guys for watching and commenting. And I apologize that I wasn't adding it in. I was so engulfed in our conversation and so excited. Usually I know my guest a bit more than I do you, but next time you're on my show, I will have had time to get to know you even more, I'm sure. But I do appreciate your time so much. Thank you. And I want you to give me, tell people how they can contact you. What's your favorite? What social media is your favorite place for people to follow you?
So my favorite social media is LinkedIn. You can find me Victoria Carrington Chávez, and I am in the greater Boston area. And you'll recognize me from the hair. Like, yeah, it's my signature.
Perfect.
And then people can also find me on Instagram and TikTok, Wild and Lee, Lee. I also have a website, lilacaspen.com. And that's where you can kind of find out what some of my offerings are, subscribe to my newsletter. One of my favorite offerings is Main Character Energy, where I get to help people find who they are in their own stories. And it's really cool because once you know that, you have the power. Like we were talking about, like you said, you can't hurt me because I know who I am. And I think that there's something so intrinsically powerful about that. So I love helping people find their power in their own stories.
I love that. I love that so much. That is awesome. Yay. So in the comments, I will have links so that you can follow up and get to know her. And I will do the same. So thank you so much, guys. And I will see all of you next week.
Yes. Awesome.
Thanks for listening to TimeBenders Talks. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Being a creative business person doesn't have to be lonely. Schedule a tour of the TimeBenders community today and discover how you can join this amazing group of creative professionals and be a part of a supportive and encouraging community where everyone thrives and succeeds. Click on the link in the description.